Good selection. It's strange.
Yeah, so it's not just they were liberal back then, they were liberal, but you're right, today.
I'm the conservative in the room in class, you know,
Well, we'll see if guests don't get that. That's how it'll be. You'll be calling them? Crazy. You've apparently of course, I tell you where we are. In the right crowd. I'm not sure if everybody would agree. Gabe might not agree. I don't think so. Gabe. That's right. That's right. But that's good for you. That's what
No, I really like it. Yeah, that's why I said.
It acts like you're always frustrated, but
I just hope I would trust him.
yeah, I'm
Welcome back, everyone. Is this on? Is this on? Thank you. Okay, now we're going to resume our meeting, and we're going to hear the report, the update from the Executive Director, Mr. Brian Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few quick updates. First, I wanted to thank everyone who's coming out today on this Saturday morning for our commission meeting. I want to give a special shout out and thanks to our staff who worked so diligently to put everything together. And I'm thankful and grateful and humbled by their presence here this morning as well as the commission itself. So let's give a little shout out to the staff. I do want to point out just a couple of quick things. One, we do have a town hall meeting on March 12th in Palmdale, California. That information will be projected on the screen in a few minutes. Okay, there it is. You see the information back there. So we moved this train around town to make sure that we get community input from throughout the community. And so we'll be up in Palmdale on the 12th. For those of you who can make it, we'd love to have you out. We're going to do a special push to get some folks out from Palmdale in that area to come to our meetings as well. This past year, we've done a real solid evaluation of our staff, and our staff worked so hard. We have made a budget request for some additional staff persons in the upcoming budget. So you may hear about that in the upcoming budget meetings, and we would definitely like the support of the commission and members of the public who might want to opine on that as it goes before the Board of Supervisors. But I think there's some additional help that's needed for our staff, and we're hoping to get those positions. And the final thing, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Sheriff's Department for putting on their website the policy prohibiting deputies from being involved in cliques or deputy gangs. There's a policy that's there. We'd like to see that policy fully enforced, but I did want to publicly acknowledge the fact that they placed that on the website, that they've updated that particular policy. So I want to thank the sheriff for that, and that concludes my report.
Yeah, as chair, I want to echo that. We're very glad to see that publicly stated and on the website, and it'll be on the new website, the newly revised website too. So kudos for that. Let's now ask Mr. Huntsman, our Inspector General, to report on some recent activities that they are up to.
I have nothing really to add unless somebody has questions. I mean, I think we've already addressed the subpoena power issue that's pending, and that we'll go forward with that. We've had interaction with the Sheriff's Department about making sure that our ordinance, when it goes live, is honored, and so we've in discussions about that. We'll see what happens. You all know the history behind that. We have a quarterly report that just came out about quarterly activities, which includes an update on immigration, and I addressed the justice deputies of the board on Wednesday. So the short version of that is there was a concern about certain people who were being unlawfully transferred under, although they had had reductions under Prop 47, and we raised that at a previous board meeting, and the Sheriff's Department has modified their policy in a way that, practice in a way that I think will hopefully take care of most of that problem. We'll monitor it, so that was good news, and they talked about that at the CAR meeting. And we have a report coming out on the continued inactivation problem. It's really more of a just an ongoing report with summaries of inactivations and when we follow policies and when we don't. But as you know, we talked previously about that problem and the reduction in opening of cases. That's still a strong concern and was a concern of this body. And I will, since there was a question in public comment about the security holds, because this body had brought this up already with the coroner, you haven't ever gotten a report back on that. I realize your agendas are full and it may not be something you want to put on an agenda. You might want to have staff follow up on it. But it does relate to that 832.7 issue I was raising of the fact that under the law there are now some very strict rules about the release of documents, including coroner's reports regarding shootings, and the concept of a security hold in which the Sheriff's Department tells the coroner not to release something under the law is not in the law. The law says that the agency that it has the documents has to release them unless to do so would interfere with an investigation. So it's certainly appropriate for the Sheriff's Department to inform the coroner that the release of a document would interfere with an investigation, but the law requires an explanation now and requires a sliding scale over time to a very strong explanation. And 18 months out, everything's supposed to go out absent clear and convincing evidence that it would interfere with a criminal prosecution, which is almost never going to be a standard that's met, I don't think. So that issue that you already raised with the coroner's office, I think, has become much more significant in this context now that we're seeing a website with placeholders for this information. Hopefully, the folks in the Sheriff's Information Bureau or AAB, where there's a fairly large number of people, will be tasked with putting that information out. And I hope that that also then goes out to the coroner's office and a process is developed so that they can intelligently withhold information when they must, but in other instances put it out. And I know that's something the coroner's office has expressed interest in doing a better job on. So I think, and the county council, of course, will be consulted in the how to do that lawfully. But so I just want to let you know that there's some movement out there. It's not as quick as we'd all like, but a lot of the things that you are doing are getting a little bit of play in areas that I think eventually are going to lead to some good changes. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Williams, let's make a note to really check back with the coroner and really get more information on the security holds. It came up today again. Commissioner?
Yeah, I just want to weigh in on that also. Can we, is there a way you can be tracking the number of cases that have security holds so you know and can keep track of the dates? So
Can you speak up, please? Can't hear you back here.
Okay.
Is there a way that you can keep track of the number of security holds, what cases they have been placed on, and then we can keep track date by date that, okay, this has hit the criteria where you need to report why you're
I would
holding it?
prefer not to, because currently the number of times in which the Sheriff's Department or Coroner's Office has complied with 832.7 is 0. So I don't think it's helpful to track the number of cases in which they haven't complied. And if we get to a point where they start to comply with some cases, then I think it would be appropriate to track the percentage of compliance. But currently the percentage is 0.
Well, are we going to start at some point? And so, for instance, as of January 1, 2020, say, okay, now the clock's ticking, and we'd like to know how many security holds have been placed since January 1, 2020. And as the clock ticks, we look at those at the appropriate benchmarks and say, okay, at this point, these documents should have been released. Did they? If not, why not?
In all the prior shootings where 18 months have gone by, or even all the prior shootings where 60 days have gone by, the law has not been complied with, therefore they should be released. So the triggering event you're describing has already happened. As a matter of course, in shootings, security holds are placed in most of them. And so those things are happening, and if this body wants me to, I can go find a number for you, but the bottom line is it's just not, as you heard from the Sheriff's Department, they've created a framework in which to report the information that's required to report by law, but they haven't actually filled it yet. I'm hopeful that the creating of the framework will then cause them to feel that they have to fill it, but it hasn't happened.
Okay, and I know we continuously refer to shootings, but we're not just talking about shootings, we're talking about fatalities at the hands of law enforcement, i.e. if someone dies in custody, the same rules apply, because we know in those cases, and we have one in particular, Mr. Horton, where for 10 years he had a security hold on that case. It kind of begs the question, what do you need, why do you have a security hold on something for 10 years when it doesn't appear to be a prosecution? I don't know the facts of the case,
But you should, because that's the purpose of that law. The law says that the government can no longer withhold that information without answering exactly your question, and not just the purpose of the whole, but really that it is absolutely necessary to keep these secrets from you. And that applies to the 10-year-old cases, and applies to the ones you mentioned that are now starting to happen as the year goes through, and it is broader than just shootings, you're correct. But again, we have zero compliance with that law. So it's really a matter for a county council to advise the sheriff and the coroner on, and then to come up with a plan for compliance with the law, which is why I think you heard from the gentleman who was speaking, the desire for a budget item for more bodies. I'm of the opinion that with 25 bodies in SIB and a larger number in AAB that they have converted to this process, that we have a lot of bodies and we've gotten zero output from what the law requires. So I don't believe this is a budgetary issue. However, at some point, if we move into gear and start actually complying with the law, it will be a budgetary issue. So I hope that will happen, and I think it will in time. I think, as you heard, there was a very genuine presentation about what they're wanting to do and planning to do, and I think it will happen, but we will have to see.
If not, use your subpoena power.
And we will have a subpoena, as pointed out, we will have a subpoena available to us to address this issue. But there's already an ACLU lawsuit on the table about compliance. Therefore, there is a court somewhere that may make some rulings on this issue. So it might be something that might resolve itself without this body having to step into one.
Well, we'll look into it though, that Mr. Williams is gonna make a note and we'll do some follow-up on security codes. So thank you. Next on the agenda is a report from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and I don't see Assistant Sheriff Gross in the room. Is there anyone else who's representing the Sheriff's Department today? Okay. All right, we'll skip to the next one. And we'll go to our ad hoc committee updates. I'm sorry? So we're going to hear from Commissioner Bonner on the activities of the body-worn camera ad hoc committee.
Thank you, Chair Higgins. By the way, let me just digress for 1 second and say that I also want to commend the sheriff on implementing a policy that prohibits deputy cliques or subgroups. He is to be commended on that, taking that step. We asked him to put his statements into policy, and he's done so. So I commend the sheriff for that. All right, so let me, at the last meeting in January, Madam Chair, you asked the ad hoc committee on body-worn cameras to review the policies that are being proposed by the Sheriff's Department surrounding the body-worn cameras when they're implemented, and hopefully they will be implemented soon. They haven't been The ad hoc committee, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Harris, and I have reviewed those policies. We've compared them with the help, by the way, very excellent and able assistance of the COC staff, particularly Christine. We've been able to do a side-by-side comparison of those proposed policies with the policies that were recommended by the ad hoc committee to the COC back in July of 2018. And the COC adopted the recommendations of the ad hoc committee. I will just say now that most of the Sheriff's Department policies are consistent with the 14